Today's Old Testament scripture reading comes from Psalm 27, verses 1 through 7. This can be found in your Pew Bibles on page 503 if you'd like to follow along. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom I shall be afraid. When evildoers assail me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and foes, they shall stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war rise up against me, yet I will be confident. One thing I asked of the Lord that I will seek after, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. For he will hide me in his shelter in the day of trouble. He will conceal me under the cover of his tent. He will set me high on a rock. Now my head is lifted up above my enemies all around me, and I will offer in his tent sacrifices with shouts of joy. I will sing and make melody to the Lord. Hear, O Lord, when I cry aloud. Be gracious to me and answer me. This ends the reading of the Old Testament.
The next scripture reading comes from 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verses 12 through 16. But we appeal to you, brothers and sisters, to respect those who labor among you, and have charge of you in the Lord and admonish you. Esteem them very highly in love because of their work. Be at peace among yourselves. And we urge you, beloved, to admonish the idlers, encourage the faint-hearted, help the weak, be patient with all of them. See that none of you repays evil for evil, but always seek to do good to one another and to all. Rejoice always. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So joy, of course, is the last emotion that we're covering in this 5-part series that we've been kind of studying on the movie Inside Out, or as I like to call it, Outside In, how it affects us and how our emotions internally kind of drive us in some way. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking, joy, well, that's a pretty self-explanatory emotion. Why do we need to hear about that one today, right? Well, is it ever really bad to hear more about joy? No? All right, there you go. Good answer. Thank you. I'm sure if it was if one was in a position or a mental state of kind of loathing joy, or those who have it, they might not want to hear about joy, but today we'll be hearing a little bit more about that. I mean, it's kind of my personality to bring joy to others and make people laugh, and hopefully you've picked that up in the 6 months that I've been here now, so that's just a part of me, so joy it is. But after watching the movie Inside Out with my girls again the other day, my lovely wife made a rather astute observation regarding the film. You see, with it, she happened to realize that when things started falling apart amongst the emotions, and the main character that they were piloting, Riley, the little girl, begins to have struggles in her own life. It is joy that keeps everything together. She's encouraging, supportive, tries to kind of reassign and redirect the other emotions to a place where they can find joy in everything that they do. Yet, the problem that I have with that is that when things in life begin to kind of fade or wane for us, or when we encounter struggles or stresses or have other negative impacts on our life, joy usually seems to be the first thing to go, right? I mean, at least in my experience, it does. Therefore, it seems rather ironic that instead of joy fading into the background during the film, when the going gets tough, joy is the glue and the driving force that holds it all together. And so as a result of this understanding, I find it even more important that one's able to find and kind of hold on to some sort of joy in their own life. Plus, with my hard wiring and how God kind of created me, I've always been one that tries to seek and evoke laughter out of others. You see, the beautiful thing about that, too, is the very strong quality that we also see in our daughter, Skylar. Pretty much since the day she was born, she's made it a goal of hers to make others laugh. And she has this trait still some 2 years later. It's hard to explain, but I've seen it happen, and every time she would make someone laugh, she would be joyful herself. It's almost as if we've been given the gift of joy as just a part of our being and identity. And maybe it's our responsibility too. Then in part, at least, it's equally our duty to bring appropriate joy to others and to share in that gift in which we have been richly given. So with that, it might help to better understand, what's kind of at the core of joy itself, and what even the word itself means or implies in a general way. Now, joy is defined in a couple of different ways, but I'll share the one primary one from Webster's dictionary. Always a good resource and place to quote, right, for word definitions. Firstly, the primary definition is a feeling of great happiness. So if you were to kind of think of it in simplistic terms, just imagine joy being the top tier of just pleasure and happiness in general, the pinnacle of which makes us feel good and kind of warm and fuzzy inside. Furthermore, the verb of joy is to rejoice. So this is yet another term that we find frequently between the covers of the Bible. So even based on the many synonyms of joy, we begin to realize how much this term or its synonym shows up in Scripture. Some of those synonyms are delight, jubilation, triumph, exultation, glee, exhilaration, exuberance, elation, euphoria, bliss, felicity, and yes, even rapture, but of the happy-making kind, not the disappearing kind. So talk about a word with a lot of emphasis and meaning. Certainly joy would be just one of those words. Clearly then there's a wealth of evidence that joy is present and should be present in both the world and our lives. Of course, there are many things that bring us that joy in life. They range from the physical to the emotional, and of course even emerge in the spiritual side of our lives as well. And naturally then we begin to kind of wonder what the source of this joy is, and what might be the genesis of it, and why maybe we even just need it. Well, for starters, as we've seen, it's an emotion that God is strongly calling us to partake in. Even in the letter to the people of Thessalonica from Paul, we witness the admonition of him in verse 16 to rejoice always. And naturally, this is always easier said than done, but the clear statement is there. But the emphasis is there to find joy in and through everything we participate in and do. So this means that we should enjoy our work or our vocation. It means we need to find joy in and with those that we love and rejoice in each and every blessing that we have been given. But granted, this cannot be a constant, never-ending feeling or sensation. However, it should be present in some form or fashion. We should experience it in some way in our life. Secondly, if we were to go just a scientific route and look at things from a merely physical and mental health perspective, then we would find that scientists have been studying the effect of laughter on human beings and have found, among other things, that laughter has a profound and instantaneous effect on virtually every important organ in the body. Laughter reduces health-sapping tensions, and it relaxes the tissues as well as exercising most vital organs. And so it's said that laughter, even when forced, results in a beneficial effect on us both mentally and physically. So next time you feel a little nervous and maybe jittery in life, just indulge in a good laugh. You see, what good advice, right? Not only that, but it provides some factual inherent benefits that partaking of joy and laughter have on our physical and our emotional state of being. And so we must realize that we can be vessels of joy, perhaps for ourselves or for others as well. Perhaps some look toward us to bring them some form of joy or hope or excitement in their own life. And maybe that's one of our duties as Christians, to show others that we can experience joy in and through God. and God alone. Instead of conveying this message that doing this whole Christian thing is boring and dull, and instead others should see and know that we can feel and experience joy in life, and that we should, in fact, rejoice in the Lord. In fact, I almost kind of shudder to think what life would look like if it were devoid of joy. And truth be told, I've been there once in my life. And to be honest, it felt like the longest stretch of time in my entire existence. And so there are, of course, things in this world that can sap us of that joy. But we should not let them. But we need to hold on to and protect this joy as much as possible and prevent it from being taken away. We might need others to help us hold on to and preserve it. Or we might need others to help us find it if it has been missing for far too long. A joy, some might say, that can at times be a result of the eye of the beholder. Yet I think biblically we find evidence for a much different story. You see, God constantly calls us to joy, and in a similar manner to rejoice. There are almost too many scripture passages to count that do just that. Yet in light of it, we are reminded that it is not an admonition that we cannot feel fear or sadness or anger or disgust. No, those are in fact still present in our lives. And they are a part of our emotional bank, and they should be as well. You see, the true beauty of all these emotions, that like the piano that we saw and witnessed last week during the sermon, an understanding of how the keys and the emotions function and kind of integrate with one another, is that all of them are essential. All of these emotions are needed in our life. They're a large part of what gives us our true humanity. They're frustrating, they're rewarding, they're memorable, all at the same time. So the memories that we make, the way we think, relate, and kind of just live, are strongly impacted by our emotions. And they all have the imprint of the emotions upon them. So as a result, we need to lean on God, and we need to lean on our church family to be the glue that holds them all together when they seem to be slipping through our fingertips, just as Joy did in the movie Inside Out. And through all of it, through the joys, the sadnesses, the angers, the disgusts, we can begin to realize the full potential of the world that God created, the people of God that God created us to be, and the true beauty and joy that one can find in itself.